No way, Jose.
The following footage proves beyond any doubt that the tanks intentionally set the house on fire. It proves that the Branch Davidians were murdered. You can see that this tank has a gas jet on the front that shoots fire. You can also see the fire quite plainly. The tank goes into the house twice, and each time as it backs out, the fire at the gas jet is plainly visible.
We must all do more to recognize and look for the early warning signals that deeply troubled young people send.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. You are watching the Morning Dump, and I am Jose Galison. This is where we kind of go into the news of the day, or just kind of whatever thing, I would normally be scrolling on while I'm taking a dump on my flicking through on Twitter or whatever. I'll basically go through articles, threads, maybe old research I want to re-go over, which that's kind of, I will warn you, I put out on the promo today. This one will be a little bit dark. Today I'm going to be going into the X-Dossier is what it's referred to as, and I'll explain to you more what that is later, but essentially this is claims from witnesses involved in the Dutroux case, which is the Belgian beast over in Belgium. And obviously I'll explain more of this. This is essentially an Epstein type thing going on in another country. So it'll just get a little bit dark. So just a warning there if you're squeamish. I'm pushing the boundary of what YouTube will allow today. Let's check in the chat. So here we go from Multiplayer Madness. Hey, Jose, the notification 30 minutes before the stream is really obnoxious. Can you change it to 1 to 2 minutes before? Thanks. I don't know if that's an option. I mean, I can look into it. I guess if that's really a big deal to people out there, let me know. But I feel like that's the standard. I feel like I've always noticed getting notifications. That's not something I chose to do. So that's whatever the default setting is on YouTube. So, or Rumble or wherever you're referring. Well, you're on YouTube, so you're referring to the YouTube one. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if that's an issue, let me know. I would think people would like getting a 30-minute notification, like, oh, that's getting ready to happen. But all right, and then I have someone else saying, yeah, for real. So they got bonjour, Redbeard. So while we wait for more people to roll in to shoot the shit with us, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode was brought to you by Nado Shave Co. If you're tired of that razor burn, the irritation, the ingrown hairs that come from those multi-blade cartridges, this is the way to go. Go back to traditional shave. You don't need that expensive bullshit. This is high quality stuff. You can shave just like your grandpa used to. Whether you're shaving your whole face or edging up your beard, these single blades give you a barber grade shave for a fraction of the price. The standard issue includes the one traditional safety razor, the razor you see pictured here, and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. That's about $75. I mean, the estimation that'll last you a year, but you can do the math yourself. I mean, you get at least two, at the very least two shaves out of these razors because they're double-sided, so you can flip them. You can use the other side of the razor. You would get at least two, if not more. I would say 2 to 4 at least. I don't know. I use them a lot more than that. I cheat, but I mean, you run the math. That'll last you a long time. It'll last me years for my first pack. But if you're one of those people who shave regularly, you may want to consider the Quarter Shave Club. That puts you about 25 cents per replacement blade. He's also got shave soaps. He's got a 3-in-1. I dig both of them. Go check that out. This is a COVID mandate refusing company as well. This company was born out of the refusal of the COVID mandate. he said, nope, I won't be doing that, and started this business in its stead after losing employment. So use code Jose at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Support those that support me and support Liberty. And it's a good product, too. It really, really is. Highly recommend it. I dig it. But yeah, let's get back to the show. Let's check in with you guys. Good morning, very racist good morning, which is ironic. We'll probably cover the FBI story related to racism later. And then morning boys, so many blue hair bitches could cut themselves with a box of 75. Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I guess, I don't know, should I, maybe, you know what, let's lead in with the racism story, just for a little funsies before we get into the dark shit. Give me a second. Oh, good morning, Tower Gang MPZ. Give me a second, let me bring up the old racism. All right, here we go. FBI statement on offensive and racist text messages. I got tagged by a bunch of you guys for this one. It says FBI statement, and this is from the FBI. This is on the FBI's official page. It says, FBI statement on offensive and racist text messages. The FBI is aware of the offensive and racist text messages sent to individuals around the country and is in contact with the Justice Department and other federal authorities on the matter. As always, we encourage members of the public to report threats of physical violence to local law enforcement authorities. Yeah, so this is, I mean, when I got tagged, I didn't know what the fuck this is referring to. But you know, just digging around, little context clues in here and there. This is, I guess, an example of the sort of things people have been dealing with. This is from my buddy BX at BX_on_X. But yeah, this is, she says, are we going to act like this is the most Jussie Smollett / make Republicans look bad op to ever exist? And why is the FBI involved? And here's the text. It says, congratulations, Negro, or greetings, Negro. Congratulations, you have been selected as a slave. We will pick you up at 10 a.m. sharp. Please do not have any sharp or pointy items with you. Failure to abide will result in a whipping. You will be in Plantation E. Your new name is Bessie from now on, or slave number number 366. They could have done better with this, whoever did this, because they put slave number and then put a hashtag, which is a symbol for number. But anyways, make America great again. E, FYI. Cornbread will be served for lunch and breakfast. The sender is not in your contact. I don't know if maybe that's like where it cuts off or something. So this is one example. I saw also somebody else in here shared this. Here's another example. Greetings. You've been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation. Be ready at 12 a.m. November 13 sharp with your belongings. Our executive slaves will come get you on a bus. Be prepared to be searched down once you've entered the plantation. You are in Plantation Group B. But yeah, so this seems to be the, you know, me digging around in the comments and, you know, the replies and different quote tweets. That seems to be the impression I'm getting. Is there some sort of weird thing going on where a lot of people are getting these weird sorts of messages, which, frankly, who gives a fuck? I mean, I don't know. I feel like if I got this text, I would probably just giggle and just move on with my life. Like, I don't know. We've all gotten spam texts before. There's some bullshit from somewhere or other. So, I don't know. It does seem like a made-up story. It seems like I don't know. It seems like a dying... I mean, not that I'm some big Trump guy, but this does feel like just kind of a last pathetic death throes. They aren't even like death throes. They're kind of like twitches of whatever, you know, fucking efforts they had against him. Because, I don't know. This just seems like some weak bullshit. It's just nothing. Like the fact that they're even getting involved. They even made a statement. It's just dumb. But yeah, okay. Yeah, that's that. You guys want me to cover it? This is just some stupid shit. Yeah, I don't know. It seems, I don't know if it's necessarily, I'm not necessarily trying to imply that it's literally the feds who actually are the ones send out the text, although I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. I mean, this could be just a handful of knuckleheads having some fun. But either way, it's just stupid, the fact that it's got latched onto. All right, let's check in with you guys. Everyone's saying good morning. All right, guys, are you ready for the dark shit? Let's get into it. I will let you guys know, this is going to be a little bit lengthy. And I will be swapping out some words in an effort to, you know, I don't know, protect the channel somewhat. But, yeah, the reason why I'm covering this, though, is because I just, I've seen some people say stuff that like, oh, we're talking some crazy stuff sometimes. And it's like, especially when you get into like SRA type stuff or like child trafficking networks or the kind of things the elites are doing to kids. And it may make you sound a little bit crazy, but it's like this is one of the examples where it's like, well, okay, here's some receipts that very strongly support this. So I don't think it's as crazy as some people may want to think. So, and I think it's kind of like you almost need to see the receipts to be really realize that like, oh no, this isn't just some like goofy like, oh, Alex Jones, Chi-Coms, oh, they're diddling your children. Like, it's not just some entertainment conspiracy stuff. Like, this is shit that I'm pretty sure fucking happens. So, but yeah, this will be a little bit longer. I'm sorry. It's a lot. All right, let me see where to start. All right, this is coming from, I'm pulling this straight from Eye of the Chicken Hawk. Great book if this is something you're interested in. This is by Simon Dovey. That is a pseudonym. That's not his real name. So I have no idea. This would be one of those people I'd love to interview sometime, but how do you interview someone who's anonymous? So, all right. And it may be a little bit disjointed because sometimes I'm obviously going to bring up names that were probably referenced to at different parts in the book. So a lot of this may not make sense. I'll try to make this make as much sense as possible, but keep in mind you are jumping into the middle of the book, a book that makes all sorts of connections. So it may be referring way back to something else. All right. For example, it says right at the beginning, like the little excerpt. I've got like something like 20 pages that I pulled from, but I went through this morning and then I like kind of tried to highlight the portions that I felt like were important. It's still quite a bit, so it's still going to be, it's a short book. It's just one of these small books though. So really it'll probably be the equivalent of me reading like 7 pages to you. So I'm just warning you guys, it's a little bit lengthy and it's kind of a little bit all over the place because I pulled from kind of different excerpts, but all right. Given the evidence of Dutro's connection to Nihul, this is where we're starting off here. I'm not going to try to make too many asides, but I do at least have to explain who these two people are. This is there was essentially I forget what exactly Dutro got busted, the specifics, but essentially the big story here is that, there was almost like an Epstein type thing going on in Belgium, and Dutro got busted for, I don't remember if it was murder or if he actually or it was RAPE. Yes, he was doing wild shit. Essentially, the long and short of it, Dutro it seemed like more of the henchman here. He's the one most people focus on when it comes to the Beast of Belgium story. It's Dutro because he's the one actually doing the dirty work, kidnapping these women, doing all sorts of weird dark deeds. But it's Nihul that seems to be more of the Epstein character, whereas Dutro is more the guy doing the dirty work, is my impression. I know you guys are a smart audience here, and a lot of you guys have covered it, so correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong. But yeah, that's kind of my impression, just so you know who those two people are. But obviously, you'll get more of an idea of who these guys are as we go on. Given the evidence of Dutro's connection to Nihul and Nihul to SEX parties involving powerful people, Judge Connerat appealed for victims of a suspected child trafficking network catering to a powerful clientele to come forward, and having demonstrated his willingness to investigate the matter, 8 people identifying themselves as victims did. These became known as the X-Witnesses. In September 1996, Connerat assigned a team led by a prosecutor named Michael Bourlet to investigate the veracity of X-Witness claims. Over a matter of months, this team compiled X-Witness statements and their findings from investigations into these within a highly classified dossier known as the X-Dossier. All right. So that's the X-Dossier that we're going through today. No, not entirely, just so you know where we're pulling this from. It's the X-Dossiers, and then there's the X-Witnesses within them. And then there were some protests. Essentially, to skim over a portion, this Connerat guy ended up getting replaced because he was at some function in support of the victims, and so they saw that as like a conflict of interest or something. There were protests as a result, and here we are. When these protests subsided, the X-Dossier team were accused of fabricating evidence and silently replaced as well. However, the classified X-Dossier they had compiled was then leaked to Flemish journalists in 1997, who released details of it within a 1990 book entitled The X-Files, What Belgium Was Not Supposed to Know About the Dutro Affair. Another book published on the X-Dossier in 2001 led to a lawsuit brought against its publisher by the head of the Belgian monarchy, King Albert. The same monarch, Michael Nihul, boasted of having a photo of jumping on a naked 16-year-old. A summary of the X-Dossier was then compiled by court order for the eventual trial of Marc Dutroux in 2004. So this is in 2004, guys. This is only 20 years ago. A copy of this highly classified summary document dated from 2005 was then leaked to WikiLeaks, who released it to the public without redaction in April 2009. Much of what the X-Dossier contains is hard to believe. It describes allegations of extreme acts of sexual violence against kids, and I do mean extreme, committed by some of the most high-profile individuals in Belgium at the time. Politicians, magistrates, royalty. All right, let's jump ahead a little bit. The reason why some of the parts of the X-Dossier should be taken seriously is largely to do with verified accounts provided by the first witness to come forward, known as X1, whose identity was leaked to the press as a woman named Regina Loof. It should be mentioned that X1 suffered from a condition called dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personality disorder, which is almost exclusively diagnosed in those who experience trauma in early childhood. This is touched on later in greater depth, as it would be used to discredit her. In my opinion, X1's testimony is both credible and unreliable and should be considered with the following maxim in mind. It is a mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. X1 claimed she was raised as a child, I'm trying to figure out how to change some of these words, not really a better word for the child prostitute, by her grandma, and in her early teens sold to a pimp named Tony Van Dan Bogart, a friend of her family. She was leased out as entertainment at what she described as abuse parties, organized by Michael Nihoul during the 1980s, and claimed Marc Dutroux had attended these parties where he functioned as a sort of caterer, supplying attendees with drugs, girls, and other sorts of vice. Oh, reminds me a little bit of the Diddy stuff, huh? As she grew older, she learned that these blackmails served a pragmatic purpose of bonding loyalties through sexual blackmail, and explained how the business aspects of Nihoul's operation worked in a book she published on her experiences in 1998. In quotations, this is from her. In Brussels, in the Avenue Louise, there was a mansion with a room equipped with built-in cameras. Even during the 70s, these cameras were so silent that only the people operating them and the child prostitute knew where they were. We were informed because it was our job to position the customer in such a way that he was very visible for the camera lens. The cameras couldn't zoom in or change position because this could be heard. I understood also why sex was not the most important factor. The contracts signed between the abusers were arranged and discussed before I went to bed with them when I was having dinner with them. I was the carrot held in front of the donkey to make him move. It also happened that the parties agreed to sign the contract after the sex. Appetizer or dessert, this made no difference to me. To them, it was a way to keep them to make them keep their promises, unwritten agreements with an enormous binding power. From the moment one has had sex with a younger, one is chained unless all parties involved keep their mouths shut. And then nothing tastes sweeter than I once heard from one of the abusers. Contracts between business and the political world, contracts among business people, cheating with subsidies or permits, the establishing of fake companies, criminal contracts, and illegal arms trade, nothing was impossible. And it always ended with sex and, when the deal was good, the other party got the services for free. They then were allowed to do all kinds of immoral things with one or more younger people. I guess that's what I'll say instead of kids, so maybe somehow protect my YouTube channel. Because, I feel like this is begging to get nuked. But, let me see. Pictures were taken jokingly to keep both parties in their contract. I'm convinced that these compromising photographs must have been abruptly wiped the smile off many men's faces when they were discreetly in an envelope put on their office desks a long time after the effects of booze and the euphoria were finished. According to X1, a higher and higher intensity of violence against the younger people prostitutes would be gradually encouraged to further solidify these bonds. Step by step, customers who at first were very careful in bed with me were pushed to become more violent. I was ordered to facilitate this because the combination of sex and violence is extremely compromising. No offender could afford to break silence after he had done this. They became partners in crime with strong ties to each other. None of them was inclined to conclude contracts with outsiders. The penalty for this could be extremely high, but this is way over my head. According to X1, as these children got older, they became a liability and were made available to murder for a fee. What X1 called the final stage. I pretended to like their advances. I fought back when they wanted me to. I played their games. That way, I remained important and didn't end up in the final stage. Because hidden very well from the outside world, younger people did die at the request of customers who could afford the money. The younger people, prostitutes, knew this very well, and the longer they had been part of the network, the more threatening it became. The risk that younger people would break the code of silence increased with their age indeed. X1 testified younger people, keep in mind, every time I'm saying younger people, I'm meaning something else. I'm just trying to be careful for the censors here. Would usually be killed in one of three ways: at an abuse party, at a factory used as a snuff film studio, or during something called a hunt. The hunts were generally organized during the official hunting season, which is in October through November, although they sometimes did it during summer too. The number of tourists in the Ardennes is low in the fall, and the sound of gunshots is normal in that period of the year. The area close to Namur, the hunters only used crossbows. That was more silent. In the other area east of Bouillon, they also used shotguns because the area is very remote. The rules of the hunt were basically the same as in Noak. The children had to run to the woods, and the hunters tried to catch them. At the boundary of the area in which the children had to stay, guards with dogs were posted so no one could run away. If a child got caught, it had to take off a piece of clothing and was hunted again. When it was totally naked, the hunter who had paid for it could do whatever he wanted with it, depending on the amount of money paid. Usually 2, sometimes 3 children were killed during a standard hunt. That was a excerpt from her book. X1 gave accounts of many victims murdered in these ways, but 4 in particular led to the reopening of cold case murders by X-Dossier investigators who interviewed her. One of these was a detailed account X1 gave of the torture and murder of a girl named Chrissy at a factory farm in 1984. The details X1 provided matched those of the murder of 14-year-old Christine Van Hess, whose body had been discovered in an old mushroom farm in 1984. X1's description of the crime scene, unavailable to the public nor published in any newspaper, matched those of the cold case files so precisely that even those who would later discredit X1's testimony were forced to claim the X-Dossier investigators had fed her this information as part of a conspiracy against the accused. The victim's body had been badly burnt and bound with ligatures fixed to the neck running down to the ankles. One wrist had a penetration wound caused by a metal nail-like object. X1 claimed she'd witnessed a group of men torture Chrissy in this way in the basement of a factory on the farm and then set her on fire. Those she accused of having participated in this were Michael Nihoul, Mark Dutroux, Bernard Weinstein, and a lawyer named Mikkel van der Elst. This lawyer had ties with Nihoul and the video processing company where Dutroux's associate Bernard Weinstein had worked. When investigators checked the cold case files, they discovered it was noted back in 1984 Christine Van Hees often visited locations also frequented by Michael Nihoul and Mark Dutroux at the time. As it was reported in 1998, an analysis of the old file shows that there is a real chance that they both crossed paths with Christine Van Hees in the beginning of 1984. Nihoul was active at the free radio station Radio Activité, located above the swimming pool where Christine Van Hees used to swim every week. The old file contains a never-exploited testimony against Nihoul's Stamface Ladolo. In 1984, witnesses also talk about a friend of Christine Van Hees who drives an American car with an eagle on the hood. Nihoul drove such a car. Francis H., the companion with whom Mark Dutroux went to harass girls at the skating rinks, including Michelle Martin, was active at the time at a free station, Radio Arc-en-Ciel in Schaerbeek. A certain Philippe M. also worked there, whose name was found in the personal telephone book of Christine Van Hees. The girl would have regularly skipped school to spend time with him. At the end of 1983, H. and Dutroux often went skating on the Poseidon in Wuhul. Christine Van Hees came there every week. All right, good morning. We got Tyler joined us. We got Mike MCA saying, what the fuck indeed. And Uncle Ted, don't be gay for McVeigh. I'm going to keep being gay for McVeigh. Don't be a Fed for Ted. I don't know. I don't have a better one for that. All right. Investigators then discovered the judge who'd been assigned to Christian Van Hees' murder case in 1984 was a magistrate named John Claude Van Espen, who turned out to be a close friend and business partner of Michelle Nihoul. When the Christine Van Hees case was reopened under the auspices of the X-Dossier investigation in 1996, now with Michelle Nihoul as a prime suspect, Van Hespen hadn't recused himself until after his conflict of interest was brought to light by a journalist 2 years later, and had in fact interfered with the investigation. For 12 years, the unsolved murder of Van Hees gathered dust in the Brussels files under the direction of Judge Van Espen. 2 years ago, a Belgian journalist revealed a close relationship between Judge Van Espen and Nihoul and then his then wife. As a lawyer, Van Espen had represented Nihoul's wife. Van Espen's sister was the godmother of Nihoul's child. Yet when Loof accused these two of the murder, Judge Van Espen saw no conflict of interest, no reason to resign, nor was he sacked as Connerat had been. And Connerat was the one we mentioned earlier, was the one who attended a luncheon that was in support of the victims of Dutroux. And so they saw that as a conflict of interest. Instead, he was allowed to order the police officers to stay out of the case. Van Espen only resigned as the judge in charge of the Mushroom Factory investigation in early 1998 after his relationship with Nihoul was exposed. X1 detailed the death of another girl named Chloe, a girl she said had gotten pregnant at one of Michael Nihoul's sex parties. X1 said she was taken to a house in 1983 and found Chloe locked inside a room on the brink of giving birth. She helped deliver the baby, which had been taken, and Chloe was left in the room bleeding. X1 believed Chloe died giving birth. After this, X1 said she had been gang R-worded by a group of men. Among whom she identified Michelle Nihoul, the lawyer Michael van der Elst, and Count Leopold Lippens. The latter of the accused was a longtime mayor of Knockheist from a prominent family with a controlling interest in Belgium's most powerful financial institution, Société Générale de Belgique. X1 provided the name of a school she thought Chloe had gone to and was presented with a yearbook from the class of 1981 to 1982. From the photos, she identified Chloe as a student named Karine Delart, who went missing in 1982 and whose body was found in 1985 inside a septic tank. It was reported the autopsy report on Karine Delart's body at the time was stated, at the level of the pelvis is a piece of tender woody tissue. It is a piece of laminaria stick, an ancient medicine used to enlarge the cervix in order to easily do the conception. The drug is used very little as it causes a lot of pain to the mother. Presence on a cup of a rectangular piece of gauze indicating swelling of the breast and fluid loss. This is common in nulliparous women. Note, nulliparous are women who give birth for the first time. So, just to recap that a little bit, this X1 individual, that witness identified this Chloe person from a yearbook, and from there, so she essentially guessed the right person, and it was the person who happened to die under these circumstances. So the point being is these are things that she's saying, and then are then corroborated later. All right, X1 then identified a second girl from another photo in the yearbook as one who was murdered in a snuff film during an abuse party sometime in 1982. Those present at the party, X1 said, were Karine Delart, her father Emile Delart, Michelle Nihoul, and two brothers named Just and Albert Bert, who owned a cinema company called Decatron NV. The photo X1 identified was of a girl named Veronique Dubreuil, who died of cancer in 1983. Her father had been an administrator of Decatron NV named Jacques Dubreuil, who later became chairman of the International Film Festival of Flanders. Veronique Dubreuil's death certificate listed her cause of death as given by two neurologists, who X1 identified as abusers of Nihoul's network. A fourth victim X1 had identified from a series of photographs of murder victims thought to have been used in CP. This was a girl named Catherine de Cooper, who disappeared in 1991. X1 said the girl was murdered during a party at a castle, later identified as one belonging to a baron named Philippe de Caters. According to the cold case file, Catherine de Cooper was last seen making a phone call from inside a building that housed a Dutch porn studio called X-Kiss, which was linked to Gerrit Elrich's operation, sorry, some of these names are awful, in Zandvoort. The last sign of life that Katrien de Kuiper gave was a phone call from a cafe on the Antwerp Jezerlaan. What the fuck? She informed her parents that she would be home a little later. The cafe was called Les Routiers. The Belgian branch of a Dutch porn company was located on the top floor. The name of the same company was repeatedly cropped up in the investigation into the Zandvoort affair in the Netherlands. Bank certificates were found in Gary Elrook's private records showing deposits to the same porn company. The pocket diary of Ulrich's life partner and alleged murderer, the Belgian Robbie van der Planken, contained the company's name and Dutch telephone number. Members of the Morkhoven work group believed they had identified Katrien de Kuiper in pornographic photos found on the Apollo discs, which served as one of the major suspected connections between the Dutroux investigation and a web of snuff pornography rings interlinked with Apollo bulletin boards. X1 spoke of many murders, but only those 4 were traced to cold cases and investigated before the initial X-Dossier team started to be replaced in early 1997. Many of these other victims X1 claimed had been killed at a factory on the outskirts of Brussels used as a snuff porn studio. According to the books Les X-Dossiers, written by the journalist the X-Dossiers were leaked to, at the time she talked about a secret studio where snuff movies were recorded. On the E40 Brussels link, she had pointed to Exit Sterbeek, and from there she made the inspectors drive until a crossing. Go left here, she said. A few miles down the road, she made the car stop. That's it, the factory. Dr. Powell looked and saw a large board with a name on it. In her own book, X1 explained how she accurately described the facility's interior. I also explained how they made child porn and snuff movies, many times with dogs, in the factory they would recognize a little later when Danny, one of the detectives, took me on a tour in Zachtventem. That word was awful. I described very accurately the inside of the building and the awful smell of the cleaning product. I guess it was Dettol they used to clean the blood spots. The factory belonged to ASCO Industries NV, an aerospace company owned by a military industrialist named Roger Boaz, a close associate of politicians, lawyers, and financiers orbiting Belgium's Parti Social Chrétien, which means it's like Christian Social Party, or the CSP. This was a political faction at its fringes aligned with Belgium's neo-fascist movement and Operation Gladio, a post-World War II effort by NATO bloc spy agencies to tamper the dialectic swing away from fascism towards left-leaning political movements. In Belgium, a bulk of industrial firms were controlled by a holding company named Société Générale des Banques, just Society General, the largest financial firm in the country, controlled by a fraternity of families who provided most of the funding for CSP political campaigns. A group of prominent figures involved with this political party and this financial firm backing it were identified in the X-Dossier as powerful figures in a network of child abusers linked to Michel Nihoul. Among these, X1 and later other X-witnesses would name or identify 2 former Belgian prime ministers affiliated with the CSP, Wilfried Martens and Paul van den Boeynants, a director of Society General named Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin, a chairman of Society General named Count Leopold Lippens, and his brother Count Francois Lippens, a magistrate named Melchior Wathelet, who served in the European Court of Justice, and a powerful Brussels attorney named Jean-Paul Dumont, a close associate of many of the above, and Michel Nihoul. It is through Jean-Paul Dumont a link to the Spartacus network was made during the X-Dossier investigation. According to the leaked X-Dossier summary, Jean-Paul Dumont had acted as the attorney for a number of high-profile individuals implicated in a CP operation housed in the headquarters of UNICEF in Belgium during the 1980s. All right, this one I'm going to skim past because now then it goes off on a side on then kind of going to this UNICEF thing, which I guess obviously they made a connection there to the Dutroux, but that's not what we're focused on today. Let's go and find the X2. Let's get into some of the other individuals involved. See, boom, boom, boom. Make sure I'm not missing any pages. Another childhood friend of X1 interviewed was identified as Chantal Storm. Chantal said she'd been prostituted to men at X1's grandmother's hotel villa as well. She said she was taken there with X1 in early childhood, where the pair were forced to have sex with each other in front of men, who then took them to private rooms and R-worded them. She stated that they had that when they misbehaved, they were beaten with a metal ruler and oftentimes threatened with a gun. Skim through some of this stuff. Chantel's family knew X1s, and the X-Dossier stated her parents had operated a tea room called the Navy, which was shut down in the 1980s for acts of morals, sexual orgies, and taking pornographic photos. Another witness who came forward, known as X4, identified both these childhood friends of X1, that is, both Natalie and Chantel, as girls she had been forced to perform with in CP. X4 hadn't known X1, but stated similarly she'd been sold by her parents into child or younger people prostitution ring in Knock through a pimp named Yak V. Another witness, identified as X2, claimed to have been the mistress of a magistrate named Carol during the 1980s. X2 claimed she'd accompanied this magistrate as his guest to high society sadomasochist younger people sex parties around Belgium, and identified some of the same hotel villas surrounding the Royal Zout Golf Club as venues where these were held. Among the attendees to these parties, X2 identified Baron Benoit de Bonvoisin, Jean-Paul Dumont, Maurice Lippens, Leopold Lippens, as well as various other prominent figures X1 hadn't identified. One of these had been a Belgian politician named Karel van Miert, who succeeded Leon Breton of Westminster pedo dossier infamy as the European Commissioner of Competition in 1983. Okay. I forgot about this detail. I mean, there's so many. This is a good book if this is the sort of things you are curious in. Well, it is dark stuff, but I didn't realize that this Leon Britton was replacing another European Commissioner of Competition who had also been essentially implicated in a PEDO scandal with a whole other dossier. Okay. And in 1996, Mier oversaw the approval of a government bailout for the aforementioned Desi family's Forges de Klablock steel factory. X1 had also been familiar with the Dolo nightclub and Michelle Nihoul. While X2 did not remember X1 from these parties, X1 identified X2 from a selection of photos as a slightly older girl than the others who attended the same abuse parties as her. X2 had also described the same child hunts X1 talked about, though hadn't seen or taken part in them herself, but did claim some rather extreme things were going on at the estates of the Belgian monarchy. Orgies in Eindhoven, this is her words at this point, in Eindhoven in 1988, an underage girl used to the place was abused and then never seen again. This girl told X2, this is this is a summary. It says this is pulled from the straight from the dossier. This is a summary in it. All right. Okay. An underage girl the girl told X2 that all the men who suffered were sick. She spoke of a castle in Brussels where she went to Easter 1987 to a madwoman named Lillian. She said we should go back to the garden. X2 understands that bodies could be buried there. X2 is thinking of Lillian Deretti, end of year celebrations 85-86. So these are like notes by the people who were creating the X-Dossier. This is a summary of the things X2 was saying, or some of the things. End of year, Carol brings X2 to the Murano. She went back 4 to 5 times afterwards. Each time, orgies with distribution of coke. Presents of minors aged 12 to 15 made available until 3 to 4. I'm assuming that means in the morning. It's showing up as military time. Generally about 10 children, 25 to 30 adults, including 5 to 6 women aged 50 and 3 to 4 girls aged 18 to 20. The orgies were started by older women. X2 did stuff with some of these women who, I'm not even going to say that on YouTube, who did a lot of stuff with her. They're just kind of going to specifics. I'm not reading all that. That's just gross anyways. It's just kind of describing sex X. After the X2 parties was brought back to Levi, president of the Murano orgies, Ben Voisin, Borlead, Levi Philippe, French from Prince Alexander. Okay. Princes Felipe and Laurent, but never active. They watched while, if you're watching, you see, kind of move my hand up and down until, that's just good. Some of that was a little crude. I wasn't going to read all that. Just kind of gross going into the specifics. Description of the 16-year-old who disappeared after a sadomaso session. The oldest girls were the mistresses. She had a specific role. Check that the girls drank alcohol and took the drug, which is cocaine, prepared by the female teachers in the form of sniffettes, which I don't know. When I used to use coke, I didn't use a sniffette, so I don't know what that means. While the little girls are used as the mistress wives who serve. X2 was a mistress. Variable dose of coke according to the partners and their expected violence. One of the most violent was Lipin's friend. That was, I don't know why they decided to focus on the specifics of his member there. I'm not reading all that. If you want, you can read the book. It kind of goes into more specifics, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm not reading all that in there. It really goes into specifics of the acts. Allegations were also made against the Belgian royal family by the witness X3. X3 testified her family had sold her into a younger person prostitution network around age 12, which catered to the Belgian monarchy from between 1950 to 1962. During this period, I shit you not, Francis Sheldon's first cousin, Frederick M. Alger Jr., served as a U.S. ambassador to Belgium and regularly played golf with the family there. All right. The testimonies of X3 were by far the most wild. They concerned high society events, hellscapes really, held at the castle estates of Prince Charles, King Baudouin, and King Albert. Among the attendees, X3 identified Paul Vanden Boynance, who also been accused by X1. The acts allegedly committed at these parties on younger people involved body mutilation, torture, murder, necrophilia, bestiality, and grotesque combinations of these. For further details, see the footnotes, as it's difficult to present these claims seriously without further evidence, as they originated from another era. The testimonies provided by X1 and her two childhood friends along with X4 appear to suggest families in Knockheist were selling their kids into younger people prostitution ring during the 1970s and 80s. The testimony provided by X2 also corroborated X1's further claim she graduated into a more extreme sadomasochist sexual blackmail network operated by Michel Nihoul. The testimony of X3 then thematically aligned with the accounts given by both X1 and identified one of the abusers X1 had accused. The X-Dossier is also full of many more witness accounts than just the handful dealt here. However, even if all of this were to be dismissed as a hoax, the accounts then provided by X1 on at least two of the three cold case murders investigated by the X-Dossier team, that of Christine Van Hees and Karen Dellar, are so precise that X1 was either truthfully recalling events from memory or having information on the case fed to her by the X-Dossier investigators, which is what they were accused of doing. And this had been used to justify the removal and replacement during the early to middle months of 1997. Either way you look at it, the X-Dossier investigation is a massive conspiracy, either to cover up the investigation into the network linked to Marc Dutroux or to frame those accused for political reasons by linking them to it. So the point they're getting there at that little end there is like this, obviously there were some things that just like, she either had to be getting this stuff fed to her or it's legit. So either you essentially have to take one extreme or the other. Either these people, for political reasons, made up all of this out of whole cloth, which I guess is possible, but it just seems like who would really want to do this to a bunch of royalty? And I just feel like it's a good way to end up unalived, like to make up some stuff. I mean, obviously if it's true, it's a good way to get unalived as well, but either way, making these some sort of crazy allegations, it's a good way to make your life hell. So it'd be a weird thing to do if it wasn't legit. But I mean, it could be not legit. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Let's scroll over. Soon after the X-Dossier team were replaced in 1997, X1's identity was leaked to the Belgian press as Regina Louf. She was then publicly discredited as a fantasist who suffered from false memory syndrome, and a media narrative was built around Marc Dutroux being a lone serial killer. The X-witness counts were all dismissed as a hoax, and on these grounds were prevented from testifying at the trials of Marc Dutroux and Michel Nihoul, which were held in 2004. Dutroux received a life sentence for the murders of the 4 girls found buried on his properties. Michel Nihoul was convicted by a jury as an accomplice to kidnapping, but the judge then acquitted him, and instead he received a 5-year sentence for a criminal association with Marc Dutroux and drug trafficking. Nihoul was then granted an early release in April 2005. So Nihoul ended up, all in all, only getting a year, because he ended up receiving a 5-year sentence. And the trials were conducted in 2004. He was released in April 2005. So I guess somewhere in the realm of a year, give or take. And Nihul was likely, it seemed more or less that Dutroux was the one doing the dirty work for Nihul. So yes, this Epstein essentially got off. So yeah, that's, sorry, I know that was long, but I felt the need to really break that out. Now I may come back on, maybe, I'm not saying I'm going to do this on the next one, but probably soon. I will probably also, because I know that sounds crazy, and it is, but this is things that happened. There, at least these claims were made. I mean, I guess you could still think that it's all made up, but the claims, this stuff happened. Like, the claims happened at the very least. And if this isn't enough for you, like I believe there's a portion in this book that goes into all the suspicious deaths around this case, because there was an insane amount of them. So that might be the next thing we go through, just kind of listing off, almost maybe in a bullet point type fashion, all the different people who died in relation to this case. So, which is pretty wild. So, and it may make you be a little bit more inclined to go, oh fuck, maybe there's something here. Maybe these people aren't making shit up. But yeah, all right. Yeah, that was long, guys. Let's remind you guys, I am on Rumble, so if you guys do want to send any super chats my way, I will read those. But yeah, let's what else we got here today? All right, 1 second. There was a couple more things I wanted to go through before we get out of here. This is a fun little aside. Let me share this. Here's Jake Shields. Here's a little clip. Now, think of this stuff in light of this. This is Alex Rosen and him discussing whether Pizzagate was real or not. Alex Rosen is one of those guys, I guess a pedo hunters type thing. So here we go.
What do you think of things like Pizzagate? You think it's total nonsense, or think there's a little bit of truth to it? Because I thought it was nonsense when I looked into it, and there's some weird things in there. I'm not saying it's all true by any means, but like, I don't know if you just saw what it was. It was like their Instagrams and their emails.
Yeah.
And all this weird stuff with kids and.
Well, I will say we've identified people as being into child porn by just them having a pizza emoji in their bio.
So that is really a symbol.
That is absolutely a symbol. That's absolutely a symbol. And we can just message somebody saying pizza, like with a question mark, and if they're like, "Yep, I like that," we don't even have to like talk to them any further. I mean, we caught a guy last year in Los Lunas, New Mexico, Thomas Medina. It's just an example I can think of off the top of my head, but I talked to him as a fake pedo pretty much, and the conversation with him probably was like 3 or 4 lines, and I'm like, "Hey man, pizza question mark?" And he's like, "Yeah." He had his real name on his profile, and dude, we went to his store. He confesses to child pornography. The cops seize his phone. I think they still have not got into it yet, but he's fucked whenever they finally crack it. So yeah, very easy. And as for Pizzagate being real or not, I mean, do I think the elites are pedophiles? I think a lot of them are. So I don't really know the details too much of Pizzagate, but
it's worth looking in the rabbit holes. When I looked down at it,
Yeah.
I thought it was BS, and I looked down at it, there's some. I'm not saying it's all real, but there's some disturbing stuff in there. What do you think of things?
All right, there you go. I just thought that'd be a fun little aside after that. Fun, I guess, is a dark way of looking at it, but you know what I mean. Oh, man. All right, yeah. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. Yeah, I mean, beer, they try to make Pizzagate sound ridiculous, but if you, especially after reading just that X-Dossier thing to you, I don't know, maybe it's not as ridiculous as we'd like to think it is. All right, now let's go over a Ken Silva article that I wanted to. Here's where we go. This is something I've actually done an episode on Radix Verum with this, but it seems like we've got some updates. I believe when me and Radix covered it, it was in a situation where this guy was attempting to plead. I could swore we were at that point, so I don't know if this is new. It seems like kind of where we were at before, but I guess there's some new information here. Either way, I guess this will be a good way to introduce some of you guys to this story. DOJ seeks 30 months for government provocateur who promoted terrorism in militia. All right. All right. Virginia man Russell Richardson Vane IV stole government documents, experimented with making a biological weapon, and pushed a militia in his area to commit acts of terrorism earlier this year, leading to his expulsion from the group. Moreover, Vane held a security clearance as an analyst for the Pentagon's National Geospatial Intelligence Agency when he committed those crimes. But despite Vane's crimes and the position of power he held while committing them, the Justice Department seeks just 30 months imprisonment for him. All right. Sorry. The defendant is plainly remorseful. He understands the impact his behavior has had on his security clearance, his career, and his family. Perhaps he himself needs no further deterrence to prevent him from reoffending, DOJ lawyers said in their Wednesday sentencing memorandum, going relatively easy on a man accused of being a government asset. Vane's lawyers, for their part, seek an even lighter sentence, time served or home confinement. Vane only served several months in prison before he was released on bail, allowing him to stay at home and take work as a plumber, his lawyers said. The FBI did find ricin, but only because Mr. Vane had done nothing to dispose of the substance in his laundry attic room, even though he was well aware he was being investigated by federal law enforcement authorities. He had created the ricin approximately a year earlier and had not touched it since, so he just had some ricin laying around his house for a year, just as people do, I guess, revealing that Vane had tested the ricin on his own skin. It was a closed test tube in a box high on a shelf in the laundry attic room. Mr. Vane forgot about the concrete-like substance because he never intended to use it for any purpose, and certainly not to hurt anyone. Just throwing it out there, guys, if you have ricin in your house, you probably should dispose of it. If not just for, I mean, obviously there's a legal side of this, but this dude had kids in his house. Wild. All right. I mean, obviously I feel like this is all bullshit, but my point being is it's a retarded argument. Vane's lawyers also defended him making ricin a deadly toxin, saying he only experimented with it in early 2023. They attached a letter of a PhD chemist who said Vane was incapable of producing ricin of sufficient purity or in a form that would be lethal to humans. Vane is set to be sentenced on Wednesday. While Vane's lawyers and the DOJ have downplayed his conduct, the Virginia Keckawas militia that he had been a member with viewed him as a dangerous provocateur, and for good reason. According to the Keckawas leader, Vane IV told them he was working for the CIA. While the leaders had reservations about Vane IV, they allowed him to enter one of their group chats because they thought he might have advanced knowledge of world-altering events. But within 2 weeks of entering the chat, Vane IV allegedly asked the Keckawas about a group fund, as well as about starting his own chapter of the Keckawas. Vane IV was told that no fund exists and members pay their own way. Such a fund would likely be illegal. In February, Vane IV promoted the idea of collecting hydrogen peroxide in a group chat with the Keckawas and other militias. He was then accused of being a provocateur, with other members calling his post Fed plot shit for real, which it's left out here a little bit, but the hydrogen peroxide, the amount he was trying to get, could be used for like a chemical warfare type thing. Yeah. To top it off, Vane IV... that didn't stop Vane IV, who then asked the Keckawas whether they had plans if the president were to be assassinated. This happened well before there was an attempt, by the way, a decent amount. I forget. I did cover this on my episode with I believe it was called like the Keckawa Fed or something is what I called it. So go check that out back if you want to get more details on the story. To top it off, Vane IV allegedly gave another Keckawas leader named Sasquatch a batch of purported Defense Intelligence Agency documents about using homemade explosives. The Keckawas issued a statement on the matter earlier this year. We, the Virginia Keckawas, are a militia-type emergency preparedness group. We do not condone terrorist activity, nor do we condone violence toward any member of the government, former or current, the group said. Furthermore, the Virginia Keckawas would never partner, ally, or whatever with any foreign government. All right, there we go. Let's check in with you guys. Someone says Toad. I don't know what the point of that is. All right, cool. What else we got? Here we go. This one I thought was pretty interesting. Here's a little clip from my buddy Clint Russell. Let me bring this up. Now this was I'm not entirely sure when I followed this back to this account, Truth Justice. And this was posted on November 7th. I'm not entirely sure. It says at the end of this little thing that it almost looks like a campaign ad at the end. But given the timing this come out, this feels like like kind of a little production put on after fact. But I'm just saying, I just want to put this out there because this may have been something used in the campaign trail that just missed my eye. But it seems like something that's obviously after the win and kind of announcing what's going to happen. I found this. I mean, obviously there's I don't know how to explain. I'll just let you guys listen. It's one of these things where it just almost seems too good to be true. I have not seen him go this hard in the paint prior, but maybe I just haven't been paying enough attention. You guys let me know. But all right, let's go.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all. And corruption it is. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and
So far, I mean, you might get what I mean when I'm just like, it just almost feels too good to be true. If you're out, if anyone does know, if you know there's like AI or something, there's nothing that I know of that would make me think it was. But we live in this post-reality world. I'm hesitant to even post things like this because someone later will be like, "Oh, it's AI." But I'm just going off the fact that multiple larger accounts have posted it. It looks legit, but I guess I'm just a little bit in disbelief in some in how hard in the paint he's going rhetorically, at least. Well, the things he's going to continue to list is like most of this is stuff that I feel like we probably will get. Maybe we'll get some of it. Maybe we won't. I think it'll be likely bastardized versions of it. I'm very much doubtful when we have grand promises from political leaders of any sort. But all right, let's keep going.
Intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives.
I will say, like, obviously I would prefer them to be abolished, but just talking this way in general is, as a president, incoming president, pretty wild. All right.
Christians or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are so corrupt that the judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They're lied to. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption, and there are plenty of them. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. Sixth, we will...
I mean, that one's a mixed bag. That one, like, it does perk my ear up at first, the whistleblowing thing, because really it depends on what it is. I know that sounds bad, but like, because that could also apply to like the, I don't know, what was the name of the kid? The kid that had the documents that he released, who I think he was a hero. The guy who got the release of documents pertaining to the Ukraine-Russia war. I forget his name. But anyways, that would be someone you could this would apply to. But I think he's more meaning like how, I mean, if you guys recall from the first 4 years Trump was in, I swear it was like every other fucking week there'd be, reports say from so-and-so from, within the Trump administration or whatever. It was these type of leaks that I think he's referring to, which fair. I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I mean, at the same time, if you take a job like this, it is kind of like, yeah, you're like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these guys do literally sign, legal documents or something saying, hey, I'm not going to release information, or if it's classified or whatever. So to some extent, you are taking this job. You're accepting that risk. It was Texiera. Jack Texiera was the name of the kid who did that. But hero. But I guess in a certain sense, technically, he did sign the dotted line and say, hey, I'm not going to release classified information because I work for the government. So, but either way, point being is it's a mixed bag, but I get it.
We will make every Inspector General's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee so they do not become the protectors of the deep state. Seventh, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they are not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. Eighth, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside the Washington swamp. Just as I moved the Bureau of Land Management to Colorado, as many as 100,000 government positions could be moved out, and I mean immediately, of Washington to places filled with patriots who love America, and they really do love America. Ninth, I will work to ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and that they regulate. So they deal with these companies and they regulate these companies, and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way. Such a public display.
I mean, that shit is gross, but not to be a Debbie Downer, they'll just find another way. Like, that's how it always works. But, hey, that's nice. All right.
Cannot go on, and it's taking place all the time, like with Big Pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. This is
All right. I mean, I think this is basically where it's ending, is on term limits. But I mean, we'll play it out in a second. But term limits are, I mean, maybe you could say there's some benefits to them, but generally speaking, they're retarded. I would say we probably talked about this a lot in my Democracy of the God That Failed It series. So I would highly recommend people check that out. I still probably need to go back and finish that with Toad at some point. But we definitely got far enough into it where we talked about time preference. So all that happens when you reduce when you get rid of term limits is you're just raising their time preference, which essentially just means that they now have a shorter time to essentially raid the treasury. Essentially, I guess is a crude way to put it, to extract as much wealth in whatever way they can in a shorter period of time. That's all it does. So I don't know. I mean, maybe you could make the case that like having a rotating group of people coming in and out might make it better in the sense that like harder for them to get their people in and like have them just like as pillars of their like the intel communities of their establishment already in there. But I mean, at the same time, if you have a rotating door, then now if anything, you're kind of reducing the clout, I guess, of the individual politicians to where now they're just going to be more easily controlled because these are going to be newer people coming in and out, and there's more of a larger pool, so it's just probably easier to just keep feeding your people in there if you just have a I don't know. I mean, I'm talking on my ass a little bit. At the end of the day, though, just a shorter amount of time that they're in there just means it gives them a shorter time frame to get the things done that they're trying to get done, which is to get everything they possibly can out of that position. So, all right, let's keep going.
This is how I will shatter the deep state and restore government that is controlled by the people and for the people. Thank you very much.
I mean, obviously, I am very doubtful of like any of this shit, but just the fact that people are talking about this, wild. So, all right. It felt fake, but I certainly support it. Yeah, this feels fake, right? I don't know. That's why I'm watching this. Like, is this some AI thing? Am I being tricked? Like, what's going? It just seems too over the target. I mean, while it is like stuff that like I don't think he'll deliver on most of it, and it's like he's wrong on some of it. It's really not all like, you know, it's not that extreme. But so far as rhetoric coming from someone about to take the presidency, pretty wild. He's gutting the government because we are broke. Yeah, I mean, maybe we're getting there. I don't know. Yo, enticing name, good stuff, man. Thanks, dude. I don't know what you're referring to about the name, whether it's maybe the morning dump. Is that you enticed by poop? I don't know. Sorry. What's up, guys? Yo, the House does this already. I don't know what you're talking about, but the terms. Yeah, I mean, there are some. I think I don't know if the House has terms. I mean, I think he's talking about shortening the terms. I don't know. All right. What else we got? I got a couple more things I can probably drop on y'all before I get out here. All right. I don't know if you guys have been hearing the murmurs about Thomas Massie. There was a post, I forget, Joey Salatine, I believe, put out a post saying he was been contacted to take up some position. And then he mentioned in his tweet something along the lines of that Massie was being considered to be put as like the Department of Ag, which is cool, I guess, in one hand, but I'll leave it to old Nick Fuentes here to kind of maybe drop a little dose of reality, while it is clearly coming from probably a very salty place. Because I don't know what his deal is. It just seems salty for some reason. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, he's kind of right here, but at least, so it is kind of a weird situation. Let's let him explain.
Dixiecrat Comeback sent $20. I was about to put money down for Harris on Pennsylvania. Glad I didn't. What are your thoughts on Ron Paul potentially being in Trump cabinet?
I think it's interesting. I wonder where he'll land. I think that they're going to try and silence people by putting them in the cabinet. You know, allegedly they stuck Thomas Massie in the Department of Agriculture. And all these people are saying, that's awesome. It's like, okay, so let me get this straight. Thomas Massie was the only Republican in Congress, in the House of Representatives, which controls the purse strings and appropriations. Massie was the only Republican in Congress that voted against foreign aid to Israel. He was the only vocal opponent of Israel on the Republican side. He named AIPAC and criticized them on Tucker's show. Now he has been elevated to be the Secretary of Agriculture, where he will not have voting power, where he will not have a platform to talk about foreign relations or AIPAC, and where he will be buried with no press and without having to worry about a re-election in 2 years, talking about agriculture instead. And people think that's a victory. See, this is what I'm talking about, you guys. Where is the political intellect here? Where is the political IQ to say that that is clearly what happened? So already they have, and if you look at the replies to Thomas Massie or whoever's post, you have Jewish people saying, oh, great, we need to replace him with someone who's pro-Israel. How much do you want to bet that the Republican that replaces Massie is pro-Israel? I'll take that bet right now. What do you think the odds are that the next time when the new Congress is seated and they pass some anti-Semitism bill or they pass some, surplus aid to Israel, how much you want to bet that whoever replaces Massie will vote for it quietly? What do you think the odds are on that? And if Thomas Massie is in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, do you think he'll offer his opinion on that? I don't think so. Where's the political IQ? But I saw Candace Owens is like, oh, I'm so happy for him. That's awesome. It's like, is it? I don't know.
Texan sent $50. Thank God for you in this.
All right, yeah, I think he's spitting facts here. Although I will say I'm torn here because the difference here is you have on one side in his current situation, he's essentially voting on the purse strings, and he is essentially an ineffective vote because in relation to what Nick is talking about when it comes to really and honestly a lot of things when it comes to him, not even just Israel, when it comes to a lot of things as libertarians would be like, hell yeah, I'm glad that he's voting this way. He's a lot of times one of the only votes. So does it really make a difference in reality and what actually ends up happening, whether he's there or not? Yes and no. Now let's say another Israel vote of some sort comes through, and he's the lone vote. Now, the difference is that you now have Massie not there, and then it just gets thrown through and everybody votes for it. You have maybe you have somebody from the left like a Rashida Tlaib or an AOC may vote it, but even then, most of the time they vote with whatever the thing is. So now you just have a clean sweep. And so the difference that makes is now it looks way better on the Zionist side of things because you get to go, oh look, all of America support all of the whole thing. No one's no stick in the mud, nothing. It just becomes great for rhetoric. It's like we have the full throated support. Whereas if you still have one guy in the mud, at least you don't have that. But it's still just like kind of a protest thing. It's in a way a rhetorical thing, which I do think rhetoric matters though. I mean, I guess this kind of ties into the Trump thing. So it's like with the thing we just talked about before, with all the promises he's making, it's like the rhetoric matters. So it's like, and that does kind of change the way people think about things when they have people in these positions, altering, controlling the rhetoric in some way. So I do think it matters that there's somewhere, as Jay Foot here just says, I do think it matters at least someone who opposes. I do too. It's just my point. I'm trying to lay out the compare the two. So we have on one side, we just have that one guy who gets to not let the other side have this talking point of everyone supports it. And it's like, as if it's this great thing. There's still some hero, some stick in the mud out there. But on the other side of things, let's say he is running the Department of Agriculture. He can affect real change. He can deregulate the fuck out of the market there. So I don't know. But at the same time though, Now, I will say when it's something like Department of Agriculture, it's not going to be sexy. No one's going to be talking about it. It's going to be pushed off to the corner. But you know what? We may have some cheaper prices on meat, vegetables, blah blah blah. So I mean that will actually affect real change. But now, does this affect hearts and minds? No, and that does matter. So I don't know. I'm torn on it. I'm very torn. Yeah. So I don't really know which one's better, to be honest with you, because yeah, I'm torn. I'm torn on this one. I kind of lean towards the Israel thing, but I don't know. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm torn on it. Sorry. Massey doesn't have to take the post. Oh no, Massey might be able to make a difference in agriculture instead of being one single dude yelling about Israel accomplishing nothing. Yeah, exactly. But although I will say I don't think it's accomplishing nothing. I do think it matters. So. What are you implying? Jack Burton. Who the fuck's... Oh. Massey became sus as soon as his wife died, and they wouldn't say how. I mean, I will admit it's a little bit weird that we never found out how. I would like to know how, just because I am, like, interested. But, I don't know. He's still been hard. He went hard, still going hard in the paint after the fact. So, I don't know if I'd call him sus. It is... I would like to know, though. I will admit I'd like to know. Who else we got? That's something Master to figure out for himself. He's a very smart guy. Yeah, he is a very smart guy. Very smart. He's the smartest. All right, let's do one more. Let's do some 764 updates. We're in a dark mode right now, aren't we? So let's get an update from, this will be another tweet from BX, again on the morning dump. The second one from her. Breaking: prolific child predator linked to 764 network denied leniency from court and given max sentence of 30 years in prison. Hell yeah, fuck this guy. Richard Rabbit Densmore, 47, organized and ran a Discord server in which young people, I guess I'll keep that trend up, were coerced / extorted to self-harm and perform naughty acts on video. In January, he was indicted on 5 counts related to younger people exploitation on behalf of 764 adjacent groups. He pled guilty to count 1 in exchange for the dismissal of the other 4 counts. Count 1 holds a maximum penalty of 30 years in prison. Not long enough, in my opinion. I agree. Densmore requested leniency from the court, arguing that he has mental health issues and has mostly lived a quiet life, abiding by the law and keeping to himself, and that he is an Army veteran who received an honorable discharge. Densmore's father also wrote a letter to the court in which he stated, Richard is very well liked and is a good person with a big heart and would help anyone in need, referencing his love for his grandma and his cat Mittens. But the court did not agree. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he's a monster, as evidenced in these audio recordings. R.I.P. Bozo. All right, so here's this friggin' loser. I guess we'll play this. I didn't realize I had an audio recording attached to it, but let's play it.
I have little children cut themselves for me.
Ugh.
And do weird shit. And, I might have people, strangle themselves with a fucking cable or kill their pets or just do weird shit. And I record it. Or I have other people record it. And then, I'm part of a cult, a really bad people cult. Because I'm paranoid schizophrenic and I fucking sleep with loaded weapons. Yeah, well, that part is true. Yeah. And I can go to the VA. And, I was never in any trouble with the military. You understand? Well, I was discharged not in a bad way. You understand? I was discharged so that I can go to the VA and get fucking medically retired. You understand that? I'm insane. You ever just want to fuck a minor in front of people that hate you? I do. You ever just want to watch a minor fucking herself in front of a...
Jesus Christ. All right, this is totally going to get... I may have to delete this from YouTube.
Fucking minor.
I probably should have looked that over for it. Yeah, sick fuck, rotten prison. Yeah. All right, I may have to delete it. Definitely, guys, please, if you're not following me already on Rumble, you need to follow me over there. Because, man, I really, 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 really am riding the line here. I'm very much probably over the line. Yeah, so fuck that guy. I also sleep with loaded weapons. Well, that's nice. Well, all right, guys. I appreciate you coming along for the ride today. Oh, I do want to give a shout out to Matt Rife out there. Not the handsome. I mean, it is a handsome, beautiful one, but not the comedic heartthrob Matt Rife, but the the old vibratory machine, the old vibrator guy, Matt Rife, that guy with the Rife machine. He sent me over a Rife machine. I don't have it in front of me, but he also sent me a nice little. Send me over the. I don't know if I can get the thing to focus on that well. The light probably fucking it up. But this is the. This is dog shit for the photo. Stupid glare. But yeah, this is the Trump shekel. This is the one they were giving out as a commemoration for like the building of the temple or whatever. I forget the details on it, but this is the Moshiach shekel. This is what this is right here, buddy. So I just think that's cool. He sent me over that shekel. I don't know if this is authentic or if this is like if this is real fucking gold, or I don't know the details of this, but either way, hype. That's fucking cool. Appreciate Matt Rife. Eddie said, would you prefer viewers over there instead? Yeah, I really would, because the viewers over in Rumble is obviously going to bump it up in the algo. And while I do it's a little bit behind the scenes thing. So far as like being a content creator, like preferring YouTube is kind of like there is more of like it has more of a viral potentiality, and also the views are more real because anyone who knows Rumble, like it's like lifting on a Smith machine. If you're like, oh, I got 4,000 views on fucking Rumble, you're like, okay, like sure. And they're like, it's like someone being on a Smith machine, being like, I fucking benched 315 on a Smith machine. You're like, no, you didn't. So yeah, in a certain sense, I prefer people over on YouTube. It is like so, but not really. I know that's not gonna last forever. It's kind of like a drug they want to keep you on. So, and like I'm always on thin ice. I mean, I guess we're in a better place now. I don't think we're gonna go super duper censorship realm. We could. So I guess in a certain sense, I'm not too worried about it. But just for future purposes, I would rather build up my alternate platforms, even just as a simple fuck you to YouTube. Just because it's like, hey, cool. Yeah, I know you guys were like what you were before, but I'm going to support a better company if possible. So I prefer to send those views over to Rumble if possible. So plus I'm monetized over there. So I do want to build up the Rumble to where I can people start sending super chats, stuff like that. So that is, yes, I do prefer that. Prefer you guys going to Rumble. So yeah, I'd like to build up that platform. But yeah, I got a Trump shekel from old Matt Rife here. So I appreciate that he sent me over a Rife machine. He sent me over the big one and the little one. I just haven't had a chance to really look at it and figure out how it works and a lot of different pieces. I plan on doing that this weekend. So shout out to you, Matt Rife. I appreciate that. You're the dude. He sent it over when he heard about my wife's epileptic issues that I had recently. He sent me over a Rife machine. So we're going to try to cure that epilepsy and cancer and, human existence and make her live forever. She's going to be immortal now. I'm pretty sure Rife machine helps with that. So I appreciate you, buddy, for doing that. We'll see how it works. Maybe I can hit the brown note on her. That'd be fun. But all right, yeah, guys, I appreciate everyone who showed up to the stream today. If you want to support what I'm doing over here, you can do that over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. That's where you can support me monetarily. The lowest level is $2. That gives you the early access to the No Way Jose episodes, which I do a little bit of to go a little bit of a side. I do want to apologize to my patrons. I was supposed to record an episode last night. Some plans changed. I will update that shortly, but that will be tonight, and I will have Austin Picard on, and we'll knock out another in our Watergate series. So if you want to get those early, about a week or more early, then that's the $2 level. Also, you can be a talking head alongside me and Austin on our Already Dead weekly series, which, by the way, we have Sam Tripoli coming on here soon. Not this week, but next week. So if you want to be a talking head next to Sam Tripoli, if you want to be able to come on the StreamYard with us and talk to Sam Tripoli, that's your way to do it right there. So that's a great deal for $2 over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The highest level is my sponsors. I read them off every episode. I have my co-hosts on Tower Gang at Tower Gang Toad. Then I also have at Abrogate D's. Then at ZOBERACK. Then at _ Infinite Zeal. Then Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. Go check that out if you want to find a biblical angle on anarcho-capitalism. You can follow him at Biblical Anarchy. And then Tim Tuttle at John Klebold makes lots of edits for the show. Love you. And then I have Will Bell that has this delicious blueberry rabbit eye wine. Then the big fan of the show at Real Josh Elliott. Then I also have a new sponsor she didn't give me out of Twitter. She didn't even care about getting a shout out. Just said, drop her name and say I'm a big fan. Torin May, I appreciate you guys' support. You guys help me do what I'm doing. You guys help me make ends meet in these dark times. So I appreciate you guys. If you guys want to, if you guys want to see this expand, if you want to see me continue to do like regularly these streams in the morning, and maybe even get to a point where I'm not even working part-time and I'm just doing this full-time, that'd be cool. But yeah, you just gotta support it if that's what you want to see. Put money into put value into things you want to see into the world, and you might actually see it back. But yeah, also if you do want to help me, if you support me elsewhere, you can follow me on Twitter at TowerGangJose. You can like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. That way we can bump this up in the algos, get this out to everybody else. Clips are always cool. If you tag me on anything online, even if it's just a share content, I'm almost 9 times out of 10 will retweet it or boost it in some way, shape, or form. So appreciate you guys. You got Eddie over saying you got it. Massey is a strong proponent of raw milk, unpasteurized, and I think natural, organic, grass-fed beef and stuff like that is kind of in his wheelhouse. Yeah, no, I think that's great. The apps and notifications are essential to getting beyond YouTube. I don't know what that means. Okay. You mean other apps? Okay. Off the Grid documentary about Thomas Massey is very cool. I have not seen that one. But all right, guys. I appreciate it when you showed up. I love you guys. Deuces, we are out.